What's up, everybody, for this special episode of Enlightened Masculinity, coming to you Monday afternoon, 5 p.m. from, where is it? San Jose, California. So Pacific Standard Time. These recordings get posted on all the platforms, the podcast platforms. So like it, share it, leave a comment. I'm Yogi Chris, PhD, founder of Ninth Limb Yoga, captain of IMC Nation. Here at IMC Base 1, the first base of IMC Nation. There's 5 now and counting. And we're already looking at property to actually buy property now instead of just renting everywhere, which we have one property owned, one of the 5 is owned, and then not to just give you all the business of it, but this talk is about business standards. So podcast overall about spirituality, masculinity, and business is a masculine endeavor. Putting yourself out there, doing the outreach, selling, and delivering product, that's a masculine endeavor. So enlightened masculinity, enlightened business standards. Every man should be in business for himself, have some control of his income. Doesn't mean you can't start in other positions. I mean, there's lots of videos and speakers out there that talk about, you know, if you've never heard me say about minimum wage, like originally minimum wage was a racist act of the workers, the laborers, and the union workers, basically in New England, where the Southern laborers, Black predominantly, could afford to drive all the way to New England and then undercut all of the New England laborers because their cost of living was so much higher living in the city, and they were union workers and trying to raise their wages. So the Southern workers would go up and outbid them, could do the work for cheaper, do the work and drive all the way back to the South. And so the union workers insisted you have to have a minimum wage. So they would raise the wage, and then at that wage, it was no longer competitive because if the employer had to pay that much anyway, then you know what I mean? So that minimum wage actually was to block out the Blacks of the South. And, you know, now it's in a position where, you know, young, I'm not saying like child labor or whatever, but let's say, I mean, I was working for my dad when I was 10 years old. I mean, chores, and I started mowing the lawn at like 12 or something, and then heavier yard work, chopping wood and cutting down when we had a little bit of land. I mowed neighbors' lawns or whatever. So, you know, I eventually worked at a gun range or something when I was 15, was like my first outside job. And I don't know what minimum wage was at that time, but I think it was like, at that time it was like 5 or something. Yeah, but what I'm saying is that, you know, a kid or a less than intelligent adult, or, you know, an immigrant or whatever, can get some kind of job below minimum wage and acquire the skills. Let's say an immigrant doesn't speak the language well, but can mop the floors. And while they're making some income, and you don't need to pay a floor mopper that much, they should, I mean, if there's enough people vying for that job. If it's so rare, there's nobody around that can do it, but it has to get done and you don't want to do it, then that's supply and demand. There's a demand for it, there's not enough supply, so the price goes up. But if there's a lot of people trying to make income, let's say 14-year-old, 15-year-olds, or immigrants, or, you know, somebody, a special ed, whatever, like, let's say in the case of the immigrant, could get the job under minimum wage while they work on their English, and then could get better jobs. Or the 12-year-old or 13-year-old, 14-year-old, that's the son or daughter, because that's the only way it would really be acceptable. And even then, it's hardly acceptable. They would think it's child labor. But if the 13-year-old son of the restaurant owner gave him a job mopping floors for below minimum wage while the son matured and gained better skills, right? So then they can pull an income, and the employer can, for more cheaply, get the job done, so the business thrives more. So that's when you get government out of business, it does better. So, you know, what was that? Why was I going into minimum wage or whatever? Business standards, masculine endeavor, you know, putting yourself out there, and, you know, owning property. I don't remember where I was going with that. Anyway, the persistence needed to work for yourself, have some income. Like, you're starting from whatever your starting place is in life. You know, when you come to IMC Nation Tech, I wasn't even selling my yoga until I came to IMC Nation Tech, and I started feeding my mind the ideas that I should work for myself. I should make money for myself. I should have some control of my income, where if I do better, I make more. Or if I work more hours, I make more money. And some jobs have that. Let's say you could get overtime or pick up extra hours or something like that. Okay, that's taking control of your income. Some, you may be able to do better service and then indirectly get better. Yeah, tips. Or also, I mean, when I was mowing lawns, if I do it faster, or if I do it better, cleaner, whatever, they may give me more. Yeah. You know, and so a job well done, like, gets rewarded. Not always, but then over time, I mean, in a purely entrepreneurial sense, because like, let's say waitressing isn't entrepreneurship, you're, you know, in service industry, so you can get paid for doing more, but you ultimately can't select your clients.
Right.
Versus if I was mowing lawns and somebody's an asshole, I don't have to mow their lawn. I don't have to do business with them anymore. You can decide what restaurant you work for. You're a service for hire. If you don't like that restaurant, you get a better one. So in that sense, you're in control. So where is your control? And then, you know, so I came from the context of working for the university. I was teaching, I was, you know, grading papers. I was, you know, producing scientific results that was able, they could get more funding from the government agencies. So it's a job, but I'm definitely not working for myself. I can't make more money. I have to do some side hustle. And, you know, coming from that arena, that matrix of just, you know, it's kind of like almost debate. It's like scientific debate is like the PhD schooling. It's like you're contending for your idea to succeed, and you got to back it up with a bunch of research, and you find this research and you pull the information. And as you become an expert on the subject, because few people are diving in that deep to everything that's available, and you're getting all the theories of all the thinkers that, you know, put the time into it, and you start innovating. And then you bring that case to, you know, the advisors and the board of teachers and your fellow students or whatever, and, you know, you debate about it, and then you make it better. And you know, that whole matrix, while I mean, I matured in some aspects, like my ability to measure things, very important. You got to measure your stats. You got to keep track of data, because if you're going to succeed at a bigger and bigger level, you're going to end up wasting a lot more time going back and finding that data later. When you have interest in it, when you're trying to measure, did I go up or down? You know, who are all my contacts? When's the last time I contacted them? You know, you just got to keep track of stuff.
Like your model roster. But
yeah, like the model roster. Like it was easy to just DM 30 models right away because I knew who they all were, and crossing them off and moving them into the other sheets. So, you know, it's just data management. That's people, but I'm keeping track of the data, their name, where they're from.
Yeah, even all the little notes, and just then you know.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm not going to keep track of all that. Use the computer, use the external hard drive to your mind to unload the information so that you do what you do, which is communicate. Enlightened business is communication. The computer can't communicate with finesse. Even AI, like it's not going to have the finesse and the consideration of the other person and what's the message you're transferring. Like when I'm selling my yoga, so that's where I guess I did get some skills from academia. I just sell my ideas. But you know, is kind of different because everybody's there. It's not the same voluntary thing. It's not getting somebody to pay $1 or $100 for, you know, some service. That the whole academic and government system, how the government's involved with academia and whatever, really warps what we consider valuable and what we consider necessary. If you get rid of the government out of that, then a lot of things, they're not necessary. Nobody's going to pay to fund the research, the kind of research I was doing. That would have been a pastime interest that I could have made some profound discovery about, like, you know, and that's how it happens. Like Isaac Newton wasn't commissioned to develop calculus. He did that in his free time while he taught other shit. You know what I mean? That was before government's all involved in that. Maybe you get a patron, like a king or somebody rich that creates the education, the school or whatever, but it's not the government. You don't take taxpayer, you don't tax the population, take their money and put it in academic, because it's going to end up, you're going to get the government telling you what subjects and authorizing what graduates and standardization and all sorts of things. So you lose innovation when you standardize.
What's standardized?
Like making it equal across the board for all cases.
Oh yeah.
You know? And that would even happen in relationships, to say standard expectations. There are some standards, just like there are some standards in university. You don't go to the university naked. You don't piss on the, there are even more standards, like you know, the standards are you show up to class kind of thing.
Yeah.
But as far as standards of what it takes to graduate, that should be for each university to decide.
Right.
And then the company that hires needs to, is that company reputable or whatever? So the government can cloak its set, like why it's needed, in saying we're protecting the employers, so they know that this person graduated from a standardized university with a standardized curriculum that they can trust, kind of thing. But then when you go in there and you're making the standards, then you start limiting what's possible. like a person can't research what's, their interest. They can what?
Well, when you finish what you're saying, I have a question.
What's your question? I already
Well,
paused.
Well, no, because what you're saying still is valid, but after that, I was gonna say, well, what about like corporations that have like the same restaurant, like 100 billion times over the whole nationwide, and it's got the same standards?
Yeah, but that's not a government. That's a corporation.
Oh,
That's a
I see.
company.
Okay.
Yeah, I can have
Different for
standards.
something.
Like if a bunch of ninth limb yoga teachers want to get certified through me, well,
Yeah.
I make a standard.
Got it,
Bikram
got it,
has
got
a
it.
standard. That's his
Yeah.
company. But for the government to say, come in and say, the whole education system, and they've monopolized it. So now if a private education comes in, it's still going to be like discard. It's like a side thing.
Oh, that's messed up.
Yeah, so that's just like medicine.
Yeah.
So they say you can't practice medicine unless you it's a limitations on it.
Oh my
So
God.
that's why homeopathic or a lot of
Can't
people,
be, like,
they got to go out of the
like-
US, or they can't say that they're a
Gosh.
doctor. They're saying that they're,
Wow.
some kind of, they can't say healer. They like the government got involved in people's lives and said you
Yeah.
can or can't do that. Supposedly to protect the people so that
Right.
they don't get duped, but then you dumb down the people.
Yeah.
So then the people don't look for themselves, and they'll get
Totally.
manipulated because they're basically being farmed. They're being,
Wow.
corralled into this way of thinking. So we're all brought up in that system. And when I became an entrepreneur, I realized how much I was brought up in that system. I
Wow.
didn't have the way of speaking, the way of understanding what was happening to sell myself, to transfer the certainty and the confidence to the other people, to be clear on what it is I'm offering, what's valuable. What I had were some things such as persistence. I had discipline in certain things, such as like my data. I was disciplined about my data. I kept track of things. Maybe didn't have discipline in other things. Like I really struggled to make my cold calls, is how I did my business. I really struggled to do that in the morning time when it was the best. So I would end up doing it later, and it lowered my effectiveness because people weren't in the business. They were there in the morning. So I got better at it. So in my discipline, I got better, but I wasn't like naturally starting out that way. But when I started out, I was good with my numbers. I was good at keeping track of stuff. It came easy to me. And, and I had persistence through wrestling and just my upbringing with my parents. So those are ingredients essential to making your own money. But how to find customers, potential clients, leads, or prospecting generates leads. And then you get leads and you sell those leads on what? Your service or your product, on your outcomes. And then how do you do that? Well, I mean, go for it. I mean, there's all kinds of systems out there. And the more you do it, the more it fills your day and your life with those activities versus just in passing sometimes. Like in the beginning, when I felt good, I did the prospecting. But at some point when you want to have a consistent, reliable income, you got to consistently, reliably prospect. And then when you have to prospect, even when you don't feel like it, that's when you realize the importance of state management and state control. You got to somehow be able to shift your mind into doing what you don't want to do. It is, it's mental. That's why. So it's discipline. And then, a lot of people, they'll find vices for doing what they want to do, like donuts or coffee or cigarettes or cocaine, who knows, whatever. And that is destroying them to supposedly on the outside. So that's why, a lot of people, they sacrifice this other dynamic for that money dynamic. They sacrifice the relationship dynamic. Because an undisciplined man that's sloppy, that doesn't take care of himself, but he's all about his business, is only mildly attractive. She'll try to fix him. She'll try to upgrade him, dress him better. And it's the sun. And then there are guys also that are cool. They got their social veneer put together, their sense of fashion, they even have smooth communication skills, amicable communication skills, where they're well liked, they're likable, but they don't have that ambition, the drive, the persistence to make their own money. So they're always a cog in a machine, a slave to someone else. They're not a slave, because slavery, let's not compare our life to that of slaves per se. I get the whole modern slavery to the, international banking system, and the governments own our soul through the birth certificate system and all of that. Yeah. Okay. So we're slaves, but there's so much choice. And, maybe at some higher levels, as I and everybody, we become aware of what the limitations that have been placed on us to ascend. Yeah. Okay. Slaves, whatever. We're on a prison planet. I think more prisoner than slave. I would go with that. We're prisoners,
Prisoners better.
but I don't think slave. But a lot of people, they feel they are trapped in their condition and they're not doing the necessary steps to get out of that condition. And when they go to start making those necessary steps, they need persistence and they need state control of their mind. They need communication skills to get the transfer of ideas, the certainty about your product. Like if you're selling like DJ Side Effects, you sell DJing and you sell cannabis, right? Cannabis products. Is it flower or some distilled product, some refined product, all of it? Okay, so you're selling to, who knows, dispensaries or to individuals? Okay, both.
Retail spaces.
Retail spaces.
Yeah, dispensaries.
So big
Yep.
sell. Okay, so then there's probably some prospecting involved with that. I mean, New Mexico isn't the biggest state. For example, there are so many yoga studios in the United States. It'll blow your mind. Like as you look up just Albuquerque yoga, you'll come up with 50 yoga studios at least. And there are some that are on the fringe, like Pilates studios that offer yoga or something like that. And so I fully called all the yoga studios in like 25 states or something. Just the whole state, every major city in the state. And so maybe there's business for you. So there's an ambitiousness of prospecting. Now I know there's legality and all of that stuff. And then, and then getting an idea of, well, maybe I can modify my product so that it's more available to smaller retailers, bigger retailers, who knows, maybe exploring different avenues where that can go. But ultimately, it's also going to be selling the people and the individuals, even the bigger retailers. It's an individual that you sell. And so where is the value? Are you getting value? Are you keeping them up to date on your innovations? How is your communication? New Mexico is a fairly beta state because of all the LGBTQ and everything there. They'll get real agitated if you talk too alpha to them. But there's a way to finesse that, to be alpha in your frame of mind and your leadership with I don't want to say softness, but it's a soft touch. There's something rounded about your voice and delivery that conveys a social aptitude, a social understanding. You mold yourself so that the person receives the certainty. And you don't lose yourself in that. And like I said, when you start to fill your day where all day, every day is business, you're doing your job, but then there's also the selling and the outreach and the marketing and everything. And you don't lose the truth and the essence of what you're doing for the sake of the sale, where you bend yourself so much and mold yourself so much that you lose your ethics and morals, or you lose your center. And you'll know that when you do like a full day of prospecting, you come home and you're like destabilized. You're like off your center. You get in a weird argument, or you're agitated or something. So you get more and more sensitive to how words affect you. Beta, of course, but we get affected by words. And as you become more sensitive to how words affect you, you get more sensitive to how your words are affecting. And that's all it is. Affect the person in a way that they want to open their wallets to your product and service, deliver it after the fact so that they want to do it again, and then raise your standards when you build your business so much that, like, man, you got to prioritize. You got to, like, need more money to service this individual or this, business, supply and demand. I'm in high supply, or I'm in high demand, not enough supply, so I got to raise my standards. And ultimately, you do business with people that you like. Now, you could do that from the get-go, and that's difficult because you're needing the money. And I don't have a problem swallowing my pride for the sake of the survival, because ultimately the victor is the one that just wins. It could be debated both ways. As long as you don't dip. If you dip because you're compromising your integrity, then that's no good.
What do you mean dip?
Dip like you feel down, like you did something wrong. Versus if you feel like, I was going to say a predator. Like, imagine I'm a hyena, savage animal, although, it's matriarchal. So let's take a different one. I'm a a wild dog, African wild dog. And we're going to kill some deer or something. And then out of nowhere, a lion comes and kills the deer. And it's like roaring at us. So it's getting the first bite and it's eating everything. And it's dry out and there's not a lot of deer. And we found this one. And so I'm just going to wait as a dog until the lion finishes eating and then I'm going to eat. I don't got to be all prideful about it. Like, well, if I didn't get the kill, then I'm not going to eat. Or I'm going to fight the lion so that I get the first tastiest bites. Like I'm looking to survive and the victor is to me. I'm the victor if I get to eat. So, you know what I'm saying? So, but it depends on your mindset. Now, if the dog get all depressed because it wanted to be the one that killed it and, you know, it wanted the jugular, it didn't want to have to eat the hind parts or whatever, like, you know, and that's what people like, you're starting out your business. So you take what's there and you don't lose, you know, respect for yourself. Now, if a person, there are instances and you learn as you do it. Like there are instances where I went through with the business and I wish I hadn't because of what the person said and I wish I hadn't.
Yeah.
And then there are other times, like it's also a mindset shift where it's like, well, just look at it like, you know, ultimately we look back and we find a better way of communicating. Like every communication that went wrong 6 months later, a year later, 10 years later, whatever, you look back and you're like, man, why did I say that? I would have said something different. And so it's the persistence. It's a real evolution. Now, the thing is the society is also evolving. It's not stationary. It's not stagnant. So you got to keep up with the times and stay tapped in with your audience and, you know, keep innovating and upgrading your communication. So this show was called Enlightened Business Standards. Are there any questions? I feel like there might be a question or comment looming in the audience. What?
I have this question of like, for example, like how would a person know, like there's like all these female therapists, for example, they like work in this.
Like mental therapists?
Yeah, like therapists for mental health. Yeah, you know, like you go to them and get talk therapy. And then you have all these women like on Instagram, for example, that I've recently started getting inspired. Like I saw some random lady who's a therapist, but she made her own program. Am I too long?
No.
She made her own program for like women to like release their insecurities and like negative traumas so they can be a better partner in a relationship. And it's like some kind of 6-step program. And I started looking through her website and it was basically like a $10,000 program for 5 months. That's how much she charges people for. And I thought like, what does it take? Like, what did she see to like even be able to charge that much? Like what, you know, like I want to be able to see that for myself of like, what does it take? Like what I could offer to.
It's just a hyper-focused audience. Don't think that like hundreds of people are paying her for that. She only needs one sale a month. And so she has a marketing funnel that has very pinpointed ads. She learned marketing or she hired somebody, probably she paid to learn the marketing so that it targets the exact audience that's the most likely clients for her. She has a certain audience of like maybe 50,000 to like 500,000, somewhere in there. She's not worried about everybody else. She's not trying to sell every woman out there. She's got the age, the ethnicity, the interests, all the social media. So she's only hitting up those people. And then it's a funnel where they go to the webinar or they go to the website and then there's the sales and then they sign up for a clarity call and then they do like some clarity call and then they're sold on it. Yeah, of course. And so by weeding out, but targeting the right people, then weeding out the people that aren't ready, because I mean, out of 500,000 women that are the right ethnicity and everything, somebody's going through a really dramatic relationship ending right there that's willing to pay 10 grand for this thing. And that's all the business person needs.
She believes on that and in that knowing. It's not even like what she can offer, but in that one customer.
Believes in, I don't know what you mean, believes in that
like
customer. Believes that customer is there to buy.
Yeah.
Well, the person didn't just make, like, this is a trend that happened in the last like 4 or 5 years. So people would, just the same way that you got a funnel and you marketed and you went to this thing revealing your, you know, deeply insecure and traumatic relationship that you have with me, that you need to release traumas and everything that you just shared publicly. So about 3, 4, 5 years ago, there was this big wave of people that had funnels like that, but the funnel, and you still see them today, the funnel was teaching people how to make the funnels for their business. so people had offerings, whatever that is, you're a crystal healer.
Yeah.
And, you've paid $15,000 over the years to get better at crystals, and you feel like you have some valuable information that could teach somebody something.
Totally.
And well, there's probably a few dozen people in the United States that would pay that if you found them and then sold it to them, right? And so that's what those systems are built off of, is like just hyper targeted ads and we'll design your website. We'll give you all of these written exercises to help you get clear on your offering, whatever. This is what I've told you to do.
Yeah.
Because I've done that program.
That's why I've started to notice all of a sudden, ever since you told me that, I started to notice like Instagram showing me other women's programs, and I'm just like, and not for me to join them, but as an idea to see what you were telling me, and it's really inspiring me.
And so that's all it is. So, the truth is also that those individuals that go through that whole funnel building program and whatever, and have an offering that they're selling, some online 5-week, 5-month training, whatever,
Totally.
is that they have successfully done that with somebody. They probably gave a lot of free lessons. They've probably tried to teach all their friends or whatever, and they have at least a few success stories that they understand. Like, for example, I had a woman that was from New Zealand, Dana, that had this. Do you remember that story? Yeah. So she had this experience that was better than this other program that she paid $5,000 for, didn't get the experience, but she got it through my YouTube video. So that's when I would say that this technique is a $5,000 technique.
Yeah.
And so very definitely, like, the muscle activations are that.
Yeah.
Like, if someone like my dad or somebody that's in pain like that with spinal injuries and whatever, learn some of these muscles because it decompresses the spine to activate these muscles. If the message could be delivered to that person in the right way, they would pay $5,000-$10,000 for this. And then you'd have to be sensitive about the words. I can't say healing. I can't say therapy. I gotta say, I gotta somehow get the idea of therapy and healing across to the person without saying those words. And they would buy if it was delivered to them right. And,
Totally.
but then, so.
Wow, that's blowing my mind. I always have this mentality of like, people just click on that and nobody ever buys. My mind says
most people don't buy, for sure.
Yeah.
You don't want most people to buy. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's a wrong target. It won't happen like that. So, yeah. Okay. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead, Saber.
Yeah, so why did you want to avoid using the term therapy or healing?
Because you can't. You'll get sued, or the government will slap something on you.
Really?
Yeah, I can't say that I'm a yoga therapist. If you go through, they have a.
You can't say heal the body.
No.
Wow.
I mean, you can, and if you get away with it.
Wow.
But a lot of yoga studios won't let you say that because they'll get in trouble if they say healing in a flyer or a workshop or a title or whatever. Look it up. Look up any yoga studio. You're not going to see anything with therapy and healing.
Wow.
Unless it's somebody that went through some government funded organization that says you can say therapist.
Okay.
Mhm.
I got a quick question.
You were saying about the standardizing.
Right. Yeah, go ahead. DJ Side.
All right, so following up with people, when you're trying to kind of get past the doorman, I guess I'd say, like, when you're calling and trying to get to the manager, to the
Yeah, we call those the gatekeepers.
The gatekeepers, yes. So to get past and to get kind of like
to the decision maker. We want to get through the gatekeepers to the decision maker.
Yes, exactly. So how would one go about kind of doing that with, I guess it's kind of, how did you do it is what I mean.
Yeah,
like,
value, positive energy, positive attitude, value, and enticement. So I got to give them value. I got to be in a good state of mind because ultimately they want to be like you. That, like, if you're selling cannabis, then you should be the happiest man alive because of your cannabis. Not because you're selling it, but because you use it. Like, you would be all about it. And or you directly are benefiting. You don't even have to use it. You could be so happy that the people who are buying your product and using it are so satisfied. So you have like but that's going to be conveyed when you're so happy about that. When you're so happy is maybe a kind of an immature emotion to say, but let's say there's certainty and there's also a joy that you are about your product and about, so that's a vibe like that. You really like what you're doing through and through. So that's the initial splash that they get from you. Then, you're talking to the gatekeeper. So they look up to you. They got to look up to you. Like, man.
They do. We're on the farm.
Huh?
We're next to the plant. So yeah, I can see that. And with our product,
they got to look up to your
organic.
character. They got to look up to your character, not what you do. What you do is cool too. They want to look up to that. They want to, dude, you got to be so likable and so cool. But they got to look up to your character. Like, man, this guy, like if you were socially savvy, good speaker, could calibrate up or down. So if the person's dumber or they're of a different ethnicity or something, you got to change it up so that, but without them thinking that you're changing up too much for their sake. It's okay for them to think that you're being considerate of them. And so you're talking in a way that is respectful of their preferences, but you don't want to change yourself so much that they think he's just shallow trying to manipulate me into buying something. So there's a sweet spot there. That's not too much, not too little. But then, how you get through the gatekeeper is value and enticement. So the value is how good the thing is that you're selling, the results it gets, the prices that you offer, the customer service, the delivery, the timeliness, really in mine also was so much of my communication. I'm responsive. I get back to you. I make updates. And then I'm also going to, I did my own things like, I'm going to definitely do the marketing. This is my marketing plan. A lot of people don't do that. Here's my testimonies. I have testimonies. So that's like value. And, enticement is, this is what I'm going to end up delivering, which is happy, healthy handstands. You're going to get happy, healthy handstands. Your wrists aren't going to ache and throb. Your shoulders aren't going to ache and throb. So I'm enticing them because that's not the value, because that's just me describing the value. The value is when you could do a handstand without your wrists hurting and your shoulders hurting. And so whatever your actual like ultimate end value product is,
the value I would say, at the end with the cannabis, I guess it kind of goes, the cannabis, I don't really have a hard time, marketing and doing and this and that. It kind of does its thing. The DJing is where it's kind of slowed down for me. So back to like getting past the gatekeepers in that aspect.
So like
I
for that aspect,
challenging.
If it's like for DJing, then you need to know what they're lacking. So that's why I knew the handstands, being able to do handstands healthy is like what they're lacking. So they may be lacking new and fresh beats. You research the best beats. You got all kinds of, you're in part of a few mastermind networks of beats, and we share beats. We all know each other's preferences. So I got the freshest, newest shit. My transitions are on point. Here's some testimonies of my work. I'm very versatile, whatever your genres. If I list the genre here, that means I'm a master of these genres. I'm not listing things that I'm casually aware of. Like I know these things and I can transition in and out, and then those are just some things off the top of my head of value that the person may be lacking when they're hiring a DJ. And then of course, reliable, I'm responsive. I never go more than 24 hours without replying to a message and, any other things.
Got you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I hope that was helpful. It comes down to what they're lacking. That's what, and the gatekeeper should be aware of what they're lacking. And if they're not, then, a lot of times I would use, it's been a while since I've called yoga studios, but I would do that here also in the sense that I'm dealing with individuals now, I'm not selling businesses. So the individual themselves is both the gatekeeper and the decision maker. So to get through to the part of them that is the decision maker, I got to get through the part of them that is the gatekeeper. And to get through the gatekeeper, I got to entice them with that value. I'm going to be asking questions. How's your relationships going? How's your business going? How do you feel in your communications? How's your social dynamics going? What's that like? Does she know you want to be with multiple women? Have you been honest with her yet? Do you still live with her? Is that draining? How's the relationship with the kids? Do you feel connected with what they're going through? Or, how do you feel about your state of mind? Are you on discipline? How's your body? We don't sell fitness, but it's a state of mind. All of us are fit, but why is that? Because it's a state of mind. Each man can get himself fit. You don't need a coach. You need a mental coach. And so, what we offer, and then I'm all, what I'm saying? So I do the reconnaissance with the gatekeeper and they'll deliver me to the decision maker because it's over their pay grade, but they can tell that it's relevant and enticing.
Makes sense, and I add that value within the cannabis space. But as far as the DJ space, I've been doing it for so long. It's hard, I guess, to get to that level. But I think with being a part of the masterminds and all of the groups and just developing better communication skills and how to put what's in my mind out, I'll be able to build that value in these areas.
Yeah, and what comes to mind is lots of samples, lots of your SoundCloud, lots of this mix, that mix, this mix, that mix. You just put it out there. And lots of persistence. The person usually doesn't buy until the 5th to 7th sale, 5th to 7th contact. But you stay in contact like 12 times or whatever. If you keep track of your numbers, then you need a list of like all of your business contacts. When's the last time you contacted them? And you put them on a rotation until you fill your calendar with DJ gigs. Then you get testimonies from the people afterwards. And then you distribute those testimonies also so that everybody knows that you're doing well. If you're staying in your city, you got to play by their rules. So you don't want to violate more than one or two people, because then you'll get kind of blacklisted in your city. But
and I've been doing a lot locally for a long time, so I kind of would like to move. That's kind of where I'm at with traveling and going to different spaces and different places, just to communicate and build that social dynamic.
Yeah, so that's going to be all testimonies, samples, and prospecting. You need a lot of samples of your work. You need a lot of testimonies of the people you've worked with that you're good to work with. And then you got to hit the phones and be prospecting and then build that roster. All right. Cool, everybody. Thank you for attending. I'm going to end this because I'm late for a massage. Os.
Thank you.